If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Omni viewer, and if I look and sound a little bit out of it, that's because I am. You may notice this video didn't begin with a little cameo by the new puppy Dynamite. That's because she's currently visiting family at the moment because I'm taking a break. You see, Dynamite's a very well-behaved puppy most of the time, but every now and then she gets what is clinically termed as the zoomies, in which she just is full of energy and the only way to expel it is to let it run its course. And she gets these occasionally at inconvenient times. Today she got them at like 2:30 in the morning, and she just would not settle. I could not fall back to sleep. I was getting her to chew on different things, and while she was distracted, I figured, well, I'm awake, there's no way I'm going back to bed because I'm like up now, so may as well do something with my own time while she's chewing on her Kong and whatnot. And not that Kong, by the way, like this Kong. If you're a pet owner, you know what I mean. Anyway, so I decided that the thing that would occupy my time, or at least could potentially occupy my time, is the new series Jellystone, which just dropped on HBO Max and is the first appearance of a lot of classic Hanna-Barbera characters in a very, very long time. I figured I would see what it was like, and before I knew it, I had gone through all 10 episodes in a row. So I figured I'd share my thoughts on what I think of this new take on these characters that have been out of the spotlight for a while. So for those of you who didn't know this existed, the basic premise of Jellystone is that it's basically taking all the Hanna-Barbera characters that are not Scooby-Doo and putting them all in one setting. It's actually kind of like the Looney Tunes show in that regard, because they've got like a little town, the eponymous Jellystone, where all the characters live and all the characters have their specific jobs or roles that they play. But it features like Yogi Bear and Boo Boo and Cindy, Huckleberry Hound, Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy, Jabberjaw, Johnny Quest, Captain Caveman. Every single Hanna-Barbera character they could fit in. Again, barring Scooby-Doo, because Scooby-Doo is everywhere these days. They do make like sort of a reference to Scooby-Doo, but more of a sort of, you just have to see it for yourself. But anyway, that's the basic idea. It's just these characters in this setting going on wacky hijinks, and it was developed by C.H. Greenblatt. So, how is the show? I have to admit, when I first saw the trailer, I wasn't sure what to make of it, because on the one hand, it had some good credentials behind it, with Greenblatt, of course, being a guy who had worked on such works as The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Chowder and whatnot, but at the same time, wasn't sure about the art style. There were some decisions that I was unsure what motivated them based simply on the trailer and what I was reading in terms of trivia. And, well, you never know, because Warner Brothers seems to have a weird sense of what it should do with its characters, or the characters that it has access to. But I gave it a shot, and I liked it. It's actually really good. I will tell you up front that it does not quite resemble the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons. It has more of that twisted, weird semi-dark sense of humor that Greenblatt developed on his previous shows, but applied to these Hanna-Barbera characters. And it allows the Hanna-Barbera characters to sort of go in different directions in some ways. In a lot of ways that they've been sort of distilled into their basic essence, but the nature of the setting and the nature of the roles they've been placed in allow for a bit more variety of certain things. For example, Yogi and Boo Boo are no longer just bears in the wild trying to steal the picnic basket. They actually are doctors, along with Cindy. All three of them are very incompetent doctors, mind you, but that's the role they play, and it allows them to just be members of this community. You also have things like Huckleberry Hound being the mayor of Jellystone, Jabberjaw and Loopy de Loop working in a convenience store owned by Magilla Gorilla, Grape Ape just sort of being this massive kaiju character that shows up every once in a while, things like that. And I think it really does work. I likened it to the Looney Tunes show earlier, but I actually think this is what I wanted the Looney Tunes show to be. People have often asked me why I don't like the Looney Tunes show, and there's a myriad of reasons why, some of which you've probably heard before, but I think the main issue has to do with how it prioritized making an animated sitcom over making a show with the Looney Tunes in it. If I can elaborate for just a moment, I'm not opposed to the idea of taking the Looney Tunes characters and putting them into a sitcom setting. But the thing of it is, that still sets a certain expectation. Whenever you put the Looney Tunes in a setting, regardless of what it is, that setting becomes an environment for the craziest of hijinks to ensue. Anything that can possibly happen because it's a cartoon, you cram as much of it as you can into the amount of space you have. And the Looney Tunes show didn't really do that. It just was a sitcom. Now you could say, of course, that it was an absurd sitcom, given the presence of animal characters, the slight amount of slapstick, not nearly as much as there was originally in the older shorts, and the directions that the plots could go when they wanted to. But the counter-argument to that would be, there are plenty of absurd sitcoms that we can also look to, and when you line the Looney Tunes show up next to the likes of, say, Alf, or Mork and Mindy, or Third Rock from the Sun, or Family Matters, or, if we get into animation, The Simpsons and Family Guy, the Looney Tunes show is just sort of following what those absurd sitcoms already did, and not really doing anything to put a very specific Looney Tunes stamp on it. I don't really think there's much you can see in the Looney Tunes show that's any different from what you might see in The Simpsons, particularly the later seasons of The Simpsons. And that was the major disappointment. Yes, there's other stuff like how the jokes tend to fall flat, the timing can be off at times, and the performances occasionally feel oddly dreary and lethargic, but that I think was the main problem. It was restricted by the setting, and was a pretty standard, absurd sitcom. Jellystone, however, just goes hog wild, which is ironic because the Hanna-Barbera characters were nowhere near as crazy as the Looney Tunes ever got, traditionally speaking. And yet here they come along and they're just going all in with the zaniness in this series. And it works. It's a good example of how you can have a single environment with the characters playing specific roles that they may not have played originally, and you can still go in directions with it that are completely off the wall. That works here. Surprisingly, too, like, you don't really expect to associate zany slapstick with the likes of Yogi Bear, and yet it happens, and like I said, it works. I'm struggling to find more intricate ways of saying it because, again, didn't really get much sleep, but Jellystone fulfills the promise that the Looney Tunes show made, but as far as I'm concerned, didn't keep. I also mentioned it had a dark sense of humor, and yeah, it can get pretty dark at times. The first episode, for example, focuses on Yogi feeling stressed by his inability to decide what he wants to eat because he only has enough time for one meal, but he cannot decide which one he wants more. So Cindy, being the sort of character who is motivated by just doing science without really thinking about what the consequences might be, installs a nuclear stomach into him, which keeps him perpetually hungry so he can eat as much as he wants. But at the same time, that causes him to completely lose control and start eating everything and everyone in town. And it causes a nearly apocalyptic event. And barbecue sauce is used to simulate blood. And it is twisted. Very, very twisted. And that's the first episode. You wouldn't have seen that sort of thing in the original Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Make no mistake of that. I did mention there were some decisions I knew about the show going in that I was unsure about what motivated them. The biggest one of those is that a good number of characters have been switched from male to female in order to add a bit more gender diversity to the cast. Most notably, characters who are now female include Augie Doggy, Jabberjaw, Loopy de Loop, roughly half of the Top Cat gang. There's quite a few of them that have been flipped. Those are the most prominent ones, though. And the other prominent one, I guess, would be Yacky Duck. Yeah. So the reason I was unsure about that is because there was a time when changing a character from male to female would have been seen as a genuine creative choice. But that's not what we generally see coming out of Hollywood these days. We are far removed from the age of, say, Chris Claremont writing X-Men and asking himself, is there any reason this new character I've got can't be female? Or, say, changing Starbuck and Boomer in Battlestar Galactica to female and sort of exploring how that makes them different from what came before. These days, it's usually done with some sort of agenda in mind, and that's not just me projecting. That's pretty much accepted at this point. But I'm kind of surprised again to say that it works. It does cause some massive changes to the characters that they flipped. Well, for the most part. I mean, I don't really think that Augie is all that different because Augie and Doggy Daddy were always sort of just about the parent-child dynamic. But a character like Jabberjaw or Loopy de Loop, it really does make some big changes. Jabberjaw in the original cartoon, I mean, Jabberjaw wasn't the most original of Hanna-Barbera properties. The show itself was one of the Scooby-Doo clones, and Jabberjaw the Shark had the vocal mannerisms of Curly Howard from the Three Stooges. Not very original. Switching that character to be female and seeing what new attributes can be added to that really makes this new version of Jabberjaw stand out more. And as for Loopy, well, it really does make a big difference, because Loopy de Loop in the male version was a guy who was trying to be very helpful and friendly and trying to defy the stereotype of the big bad wolf and always failing. There is allegory to be found there, by the way, but we won't be getting into that here. Whereas the female Loopy de Loop is a bit more aloof, if you will. She is a bit more passive-aggressive, sometimes discourages bad behavior, but sometimes encourages it. So, vastly different. But within context, it does all make sense. And if you're worried that it is agenda-driven, you don't need to be. If it were agenda-driven, then all the female characters in the show would be the stable ones reeling in the crazy male characters. Not the case. Jellystone is a series that treats everyone as equally stupid and equally capable of leveling the town once an episode. And yes, Jellystone gets leveled a lot, and it can be anyone's fault. So, yeah, I think the change was justified. Of course, there are so many characters at this point that not all of them have had a chance to really do anything in these first 10 episodes. The main focus is on Yogi Boo Boo and Cindy, Huckleberry, the Top Cat Gang, Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy and Jabberjaw. They are the primaries at this point. Everyone else comes in secondary at best. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of other characters that are there and they're recognizable, but they don't really contribute anything. They don't have lines, they don't move each episode's plot forward necessarily. They just seem like they are there. But they're always there, and you get the sense that they will be more prominently featured at some point. It's just hard to say when. We've only got the first 10 episodes after all. Well, I guess it's 20 if you count each 15-minute segment as its own episode, but they're grouped together in pairings, so it's 10 at this point. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call Jellystone an amazing series, but it's a fun series. It's silly, it's got a good sense of humor, a good sense of timing. It's refreshing to see these characters again after so long, and seeing them portrayed in ways that feel true to who they are, but still feel like they are not just stuck in the past. Like they actually have moved forward, and not in a yo-yogi kind of way, more in a timeless kind of way. So, yeah, I would recommend checking out Jellystone at this point. Whether or not it can keep that momentum going, I don't know, but for now, I think it works, and I would like to see more, whenever HBO Max feels like uploading the rest. And that's all I have to say for now. I am very tired and about to pass out, so until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.